Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're checking out a RuneCraft deck for Unlimited. So you've seen a lot of Mysteria decks from me for rotation. We haven't covered barely anything in Unlimited for Rune decks, especially Mysteria variants at the moment. And trust me, Mysteria has a lot of fun decks at the moment when it comes to any format, which is great, as I do think Mysteria, while a lot of people are hating on it because it is the most powerful, it's still probably one of the more fun decks at the moment, just because one, it does win, and it always feels good to win, but two, it's just got a lot of options, which is always nice. It does decent with board flood, it's got no TK, and it's got a few different variants which can be ran, so you can always have some variation on your deck. You don't have to run the same stock standard list for everything, you just run a single core engine, and then you can pretty much do what you want with the rest of the cards, within reason of course, without going out too extreme, but it's still a lot of fun for me, and it's definitely one of my top picks currently for probably the next month or so until we see what comes from the next expansion. So this deck, of course, being unlimited, is able to run a lot of cards that you just can't in rotation, like Ogla, one of probably my favorite cards, mainly because its design is just so different from what we normally get, and I do love a lot of these kind of monstery, animalistic style ones that are not human based. I was trying to think of what that's called, but anthropomorphic. I'm so bad at pronouncing stuff like that, but that's fine. Hopefully you guys still love me, that's all good. But we've got, of course, all the stock engine, a lot of fun with it, and the great thing about Oglas and stuff is they can take advantage of spell boost, which is always good, and considering you don't have really any other spell boosting cards in the deck, Freshman Lou pretty much pulls Ogla 100%. Actually, I think it is 100% because there are no other spell boosters in this deck. The only card I don't like a lot is Mysteria and Grimoire, but it can come in handy when you're starting to run out of cards, so definitely a good one. And considering you're running minimal spells, unless they are spells you're gaining off followers, really not that bad. And again, Owen Knight, another great card. There's lots of Mysteria followers, so you're guaranteed to pull something that you can use, which is always nice. Wizardess of Oz, a card I would like to have used in this video. I have used it, I think, in a previous video, but as far as this video goes, I didn't get to. It just allows you to access Anne a lot earlier, because Anne's sorcery can be used with the Wizardess of Oz, be dropped to 1 and then be used. So if you play Anne on 5, for example, get an Anne sorcery, drop Wizard of Oz turn 6, you now can throw Anne sorcery to the face for a crap ton of damage if you've had a pretty decent early game. So we're going to get right into this and check it out. So sorry I rambled there a bit in the beginning. It's definitely one of my favorite decks for Unlimited right now, as it is just a fun one. Whether I win or lose, usually the games are close and I have fun with them. And it's just, like I said, it got a lot of variation, so no matter what deck you're going up against, there isn't usually much your opponent can do to stop you, excluding, of course, mirror matches, where OTK decks can have a real going first problem. If you're not going first in a mirror, it can be a lot of trouble. But of course, if you wanted to kind of mitigate that a bit, you could run Lyriel, although in rotation, Lyriel's much better. In Unlimited, it's a bit more iffy. So, Spiderweb Imp, no surprise, they're definitely aiming for that self-damage. No shocker, not a lot I can do though, except kind of buy some time. I lower this Ogla down kind of as much as I can, so I can kind of take advantage of it next turn. Or maybe the turn after might be better. Because I mean, we've got Grey, but we can't use that until turn 5, as we just don't have an Evo. So all we can really do right now is the best we can, honestly. That's kind of it. So we can play out Mysteria cards, boost as many things as we can, and just hope that they don't do too much face damage, which is not too bad because they are focusing on the clears right now, which is good for us. But they are still going to do 7 damage to the face very, very easily. So we are taking a lot of risky damage, but it had to be a risk I was willing to take. At least this time round, we're going to do okay. We do have a Grey's Ember, which should mitigate the 5-3 pretty nicely, removing that, and allowing us to play both the Mysteria, Mirinda, Light Mage, and of course Ogla. So very easy to play both of those, no issues at all. So it means we did develop quite a nice board, and now they do need to get around this. So definitely a little beneficial for us. They decided to go for the full-on trade. If the header went face, I would have been a little more worried, but that trade was actually perfect. I decided to take a similar route, going for some removal with spells and then a trade with the Light Mage. I was considering going for the Ogla play to avoid double Razor Claw, but with 2 cards in hand, it wasn't necessarily the biggest worry I had. Although it definitely probably should have been, as I think taking that risk was quite a big one at this point. I think that risk was definitely the most risky play of this match, by far. At least Valkyrie, without any kind of stat boost, really wasn't going to help them, so that did of course round out the match for us. So our last few videos have really been a lot of Shadow and Blood matches. I apologise for that, but they are some of the most common decks in Unlimited. It's very hard to avoid Shadow and Blood in Unlimited currently. Like, I would say 8 out of 10 matches are Shadow or Blood. Like, that's it. It's 8 out of 10, pretty much full stop. So every time I go into Unlimited, they're the 2 decks I expect the most, which is why this deck does quite well, as it does do pretty decently against both. Although Blood is normally a much closer matchup, Shadow is a pretty reasonable one, unless they get a perfect hand running things like double Cerberus that can be hard to remove, but by the time they're at Cerberus, usually I'm doing pretty well with this one, as I have found this deck doesn't brick as hard as the rotation variations do, because it does have a lot of those spell boosting options, and having the Ogla as the spell boosting option, but having a lot more draw power really does help you out, which is obvious when it comes to bricking, as you just don't want to brick. So a turn 3 Ogla could not ask for a much better play. The only thing better than a turn 3 Ogla is a turn 3 Florus when it comes to just flat out playing stats, unless of course you go for a turn 3 Atomy, but these days that is a lot harder to pull off. So I decided to take the Magic Mentor route when I didn't really need to. I could have went for the Grey route, but Magic Mentor felt good with the Mysterian Missile, and I still have Grey available next turn. Osiris, not the thing I want to come up against, especially after their last play. Although, with the Necromancy, they can only really summon a single card anyway, so I'm not really too concerned. So we're going to get some really good damage in, and be able to remove this. So no need to waste our Evos. We've got some decent cards to use Evo points on. Crow, not something you see every day. I'm really glad that I get to see it here in play. I praise anyone who's willing to give the Crow a go at this point, especially even in Unlimited. So Grey's going to be perfect. Grey's Inferno, 5 damage. At this point, it's not random because there's only a 7/5 on board, which means Grey is pretty perfect for this. Plus, it's both a Spell Boost and Mysteria card, which means our Ogla and Light Mage both get boosted off it, so that's always a nice feature. There is the Infernal Crown, not a surprise. But again, Grey and Grey's Inferno, honestly, pretty much perfect. Great way to remove anything with 5 health, and be able to play out even more cards as we go. And with how our hand is right now, we're looking at a very positive board state, but our opponent does end up conceding, rounding out that match for us. So I would definitely recommend this deck. It's, again, not super expensive. I mean, we're running 3 legendaries and they're all Wizard of Oz, and as you saw in that video, not a card I necessarily needed. It definitely will help with some of the more drawn out games, but as far as it goes, it's definitely not 100% necessary for a Mysteria deck. You could probably easily replace Oz with another card. I can't think off the top of my head what would be a good replacement for Oz, but maybe some of you guys in the comments may have something that you could think of if you want to. If the best one gets posted there, I will probably pin it. There's going to be bound to be a decent replacement for Oz. I mean, that isn't a legendary that can, of course, make this deck even more budget orientated. And considering how well it's been performing, if you are interested in grinding out that master score for the month, highly recommend playing this right now before anything big comes in to counter it, because it just performs that well. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. You can find the deck list in the description below. Be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more content. Until next time, see you.